All right, welcome back to the channel. This is an exciting time of the year for me. I love the fall, like most people probably, but I love it because of collect a lot of acorns, pecans, walnuts, all sorts of different trees, species that you could get the seeds from and get ready to plant them. So I made another video quite a while back on planting acorns from the beginning to the end type thing. Watch if you'd like. This one's going to be hopefully brief, but also cover very similar topics, but I'm going to talk a little bit about pecans and walnuts as well. So let me just, so right here, this is, my wife, myself, and my kid collected those acorns. That was 2 trips to our local grocery store that has a bunch of sawtooth oaks. Sawtooth oaks, if you're not familiar with them, produce a massive quantity of acorns, so it wasn't real hard to pick up, you know, almost, like I said, I think there's over 1,000 there. These are some pecans. This is a Schubert oak, and I'll explain the difference between all of these in just a second. And then the black walnuts are falling right now. Pecans were a little early. I got some good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones in there, and I'll show you how to test for those. So first off, as soon as you collect your acorns or pecans, like I said, you prefer to have the pecans busted open like these. When they split open, they're normally ready to go. If they're still in the shell, I could reach those really easy, and I wasn't going to go back to this location, so I said, well, I'll pick some of these and try them. So that took me about 10 minutes to pick all those. So I do worry, we'll see when they split open, but I bet a lot of those are not going to be good, just because they weren't ripe yet. Most of these came off the ground, but some of those I picked off the tree. These, we had a big storm moved through, and these actually came from by a post office, and they got knocked off. That color, people sometimes wonder like when you should pick them. Acorns, you could get away with it as long as a lot of them's turning brown. You could get away with greenish, and you could see on some of these are actually turning brown, and you could. If you can see that, you could get away that they're normally ripe at that point. So once you come home, you need to probably immediately or within a day do the float test. As you can see here, it's just water. All the acorns floating, the pecans floating, probably all are going to be trash. I'll probably plant them because this test isn't perfect, but I'm not going to plant them necessarily where I want them. I'm just going to plant them randomly, and if they pop up, great. I could transplant them. If not, they're not messing up my rest of my seed production. So once you do a float test, all of those tested good. So that's one nice thing about the sawtooth oaks. I think I had maybe 20 out of 1,000 that tested bad. Something else to realize, be careful in terms of if they're on the ground, if they've been in the sun a long time, that will destroy them pretty quick. Acorns, all these seeds, they could only dry out so much before they actually die. So you may want to soak it for 24 hours to see if it sinks at that point, just in case it's a little dry. Also, the soak test or the float test. If you pick up acorns that's been soaked in water for days, they may sink and they may not be good. So the test isn't perfect. That's why I'm going to go ahead and plant some of these other ones. But that's also why it's nice to get them when they fall off like this, or to pick them off. Like I said, probably about a quarter of those I actually picked off, and they were greenish, kind of like these, and they turned brown. So that's testing them. Now you got to decide, you have to understand what kind of tree it is. If it's oak, is it a white oak or a black oak? Then that'll kind of give you an idea of if you need stratification before you plant them. For those who don't know stratification, basically the whole process that wakes up the acorn or a seed or nut so that it will start growing in the spring. Some acorns need no stratification process whatsoever. A lot of your white oaks, and I guess I'll show this leaf right now. So this here is how you can tell a white oak normally from a black oak, or red oak is classified in with black oaks a lot of times. If it's pointed like this, if it has points, that's going to fall into the red oak, black oak family. If they're rounded, big lopes, and no points, that's going to be a white oak. So a type of white oak. There is an actual white oak species, but sawtooths fall into a white oak category. These Schumer oak fall into the black oak category, even though they're technically red oak, but they fall into the black oaks. So stratification, sawtooth oaks need no stratification whatsoever. These will start growing and starting their taproot very quickly. I would say in the next, couple weeks. So they'll start growing. So I want to get those in the ground. Pecans, so all these pecans that were sinking or sank, I will take those. Those need cold stratification. The Schumer oak needs cold stratification, and so does the walnuts. Schumer oak, I believe, is like 2 to 4 months, maybe. I believe, of cold stratification. Pecans are, I believe, 30 to 90 days, and walnuts are 90 to 120 days. So 3 to 4 months for walnuts. If you're in the South, it's hard to get the good stratification a lot of times, and so that's where putting them in the refrigerator will help. So what I'll do with these is I'll take all the ones that are floating, I'll just plant those, like I said, randomly, and if they grow, great. If not, that's okay. These ones that sank, I will take them and basically put them in a plastic tote with a lid with peat moss inside. Just put them on top. You just don't want them to dry out, and put them in a refrigerator and since I'll have walnuts in there, pecans, and these acorns, I'll just leave them in there over winter, so at least 4 months. You don't want them to freeze, so you want kind of that right above freezing temperature. That'll start them get ready for the spring. And up north, you could easily plant those in the ground now, and they'll go through cold stratification. The only reason and we probably could here in kind of the in zone 6 to 7. The only reason I'm not going to is because the longer it's in the ground, the more chances of something getting it, a squirrel, raccoon, whatever, digging it up, birds. And so I just have better luck cold stratifying them in the refrigerator. But again, since the sawtooths, they don't need stratification, it's better to get them in the ground now. They'll grow taproot this fall into the winter, and then this spring they'll pop up extremely fast. In my other video, these are the containers I use often. This here is a chestnut that I planted this year, so it's growing pretty good. I'll transplant that this fall. I'll use these containers probably for the walnuts and the pecans, the stuff I overwinter, because I won't have these pots ready or these containers ready for all these sawtooth oaks. What I'm going to do is basically make some planting, I don't want to say beds, but basically kind of this area next to my shop, and I will plant probably about 100 to 150 acorns per meter squared, so about 10 to 15 square feet or so. I'll plant 150 to 160 probably acorns in that area, and then I'll let those grow. The reason I'm going to do that this year is because containers work great, and again, I'll use them for the walnuts, but they are more of a headache to water and that kind of stuff. Easy to transplant, but harder to water. Whereas if you plant, you have 160 of these in one small area, you're going to be able to water them much easier. And then you could transplant them this coming fall. So the other tip I would have is I would sort. So you can see there's quite a bit of different sizes. Number one, make sure that even like those little guys, do a float test on them, but try to sort them by size if you have this many, and plant one bed full of the same size. These two I don't want probably in the same, and I say you don't want, but they're going to germinate different, grow different, and be different sizes than the bigger acorns. There's been a few studies, or a couple studies at least, that show the bigger the acorn or whatever it is, the faster it grows. And so I don't want different sizes in those beds so they don't shade each other out. So that's kind of the process. Like I said, go pick them up. It's like I said, my family probably thinks I'm a little crazy because I do get so excited this time of year to get the acorns, pecans, walnuts, and others. So pick them up. Try to take a picture of the leaf or study the tree. You could use Google Lens to see if it will identify, what kind of leaf it is, or just start searching for different oaks. Once you determine that, you could figure out the stratification time that it needs. Make sure you stratify it correctly. Again, hopefully you get some white oaks that don't need stratification. And I say that, check what white oak it is, because the bur oak is a white oak, and it does need, I believe it's a shorter time. I believe it's 60 day stratification, 60, 90 maybe. So it's probably just as long as some of the red oaks. So figure out how much stratification it needs, plant those. Then once they grow up, you'll get something like this, the first year. Then you could go start planting those. In the fall, once they go dormant, you could easily transplant those to wherever you want. It's a great way to increase trees around your house. You could also potentially sell these depending on where you're at. So it's just a fun way to add a lot of trees in areas that may not have trees, or may have trees that's undesirable, and you can get better quality trees in there. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you do something different or have a different suggestions or whatever for everyone, please put them in the comments. If you like the video, please thumbs up, and please subscribe. I'm gonna make videos based on what kind of thumbs up or not they get. So hopefully it's helpful. Once I make the bed, which will probably be next week or so, I may make a video of that as well, and kind of show how many fit into a small little area. So thanks for watching.